Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Viz. Today I have a very special guest, Kim Lee, all the way from Melbourne to give us a behind the scenes look on her Viz. So over to you, Kim Lee.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me, Lewis. This is the first time I've done something like this, so it's going to be a good experience. Just a bit about myself. I am based in Melbourne. It's quite a nice sunny day today, nice winter day. And you've probably seen me around the Tableau community. I'm a Tableau ambassador, Tableau visionary, and I'm also an Iron Viz finalist. One of the highlights of my Tableau work was presenting 2 sessions at Tableau conference earlier this year.
Sounds good. So let's get started on your Viz. Maybe you want to share your screen and we'll talk through the design inspiration behind this wonderful Viz.
Cool. So it was a year in the making. I had this idea of creating a visualization that looked at statues of women in Melbourne. I can't remember exactly how I came about with the idea, but I think it could have possibly been that I came across this article that talked about the lack of representation in monuments and statues depicting women. And when I dug a little deeper into the data, I found that there was only 8 statues depicting women, and it says here 51 statues depicting historical men. And the reason why it took me so long to publish this visualization was because I wanted to include images of those statues. I wanted to go out there and have a look at those statues myself and take photos. So if I click on the dots I
was wondering that about yourself. Like you told me it took 1 year. I was wondering whether you actually went there and visited, and you actually did.
That was literally the whole reason. You know, it's hard to find time, and you probably see this yourself with little kids, to go out into the city, because I don't live in the city. I live a little bit further out. It's hard to find time to go, but I really wanted to have a look at these statues and to take the photos myself. And some of the statues I've got 2 little girls, so I took my little girls to see them as well, and I explained to them why we were here and gave them a bit of a background about the statues that they were seeing. So we kind of made it an excursion, but as you can see, they're kind of spread over around the city, so I couldn't do it all in one day. I had to go out when I had the chance, and it actually took me a whole year to have the time to go out and visit those 8 statues.
That's some dedication.
Oh, it was. I had this sitting on the back burner. I was wanting to publish it in time for Women's History Month, which I think was like 2 years ago where I started, but I didn't get to take the last photo until earlier this year where I could actually publish it. So yeah, that was a bit of a story around why it took so long. And, you know, I thought taking those pictures myself and putting that into the visualization would give it more of that personal feel. It's only 8 statues. It was something that we could do. It's not like it was really time consuming to go out and take those 8 pictures.
Imagine if the numbers were flipped, like there were like 51 statues of women instead of 8.
Yeah, well, I probably wouldn't have gone out and taken those photos myself. It would have been a lot quicker to put this visualization together, I can tell you that. Yeah, so I guess I tried to produce a visualization every year for Women's History Month, just to kind of put the spotlight on women and maybe highlight issues that we may not really think about or know about. And I thought this was a really good one because, yes, there are so many statues, but if you break it down, and if you look at actual statues that depict real historical women, it's few and far between. And we see the same thing, not just in Melbourne. When I was doing my research, it's happening all over the world. So, you know, in cities all over the world, there's so many statues of men. You can see down here in the Want to Find Out More section that there are actually organizations that are really pushing to increase the number of women who are being immortalized in these statues. Yeah.
That's really cool. So I think the data side is probably quite straightforward because it's just 8 data points plus like the map layer and all.
Yes, that's right. Well, actually, it's 8 data points for women, but I wanted to include the men in there as well. So when we click on the button, we can see the grey dots here are the statues that depict the men. And I didn't go out and take photos of those statues, just a tooltip. I actually stumbled across this really comprehensive database on statues in Australia. So I was able to get information from there. I was really lucky that I came across that database.
That's really cool. So just a weird question I have. Over here, we have 51 statues of historical men. We have 8 statues of historical women. What about the other 400 statues? Because you were saying that Melbourne is home to 580 statues. What are those?
That's a really good question. And those other 400 are just statues of mythological beings or random things. Like statues of dogs, statues of fairies or something like that. So that's what those additional statues were or
Yeah,
are.
it's probably what piqued the interest of the leaders of the past.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe if someone was commissioned to do a statue, and in Melbourne there's a statue, I think it's called Three Businessmen, and they're just some fictional businessmen out in the street, and they just stand there on Burke Street, and that's what it is. It's not even
It is
anyone.
art. Yeah, it is art.
Yeah, and that's right. That's right. It's just there to look good and to represent art, but not make a statement or anything like that.
So in terms of building the map, is this a map layer?
Actually, no. The background map is customized in MapBox. I'm not an expert in MapBox whatsoever, but I do like to tinker with things. So what I did was I played around with a whole bunch of colors and different like layers in MapBox until I came up with something that I thought looked good and matched the color scheme that I was going with. So created it in MapBox and then imported it into Tableau. What you see here is a couple of maps layered on top of each other. When you click on the Show Statues Honoring Men, that's another map that I created in Tableau with the longitude and latitudinal points with all of the background removed so that it's clear, so that when I place it on top of here, you can see the stuff underneath. And similar to the women, it's just plotted on a map. It's nothing really fancy or special. I think bringing the MapBox map in and styles is kind of what makes the visualization a little bit different to the standard Tableau-based map.
Looking at this, I would assume that you're probably team floating.
Yes, well, it depends. In my day-to-day job, creating business dashboards, it's all tiled. But when I do my visualizations here in Tableau Public, it's all floating. So if you download my workbook, you'll see that everything is floated on top of each other. And the reason I did that is just because it gives me the flexibility to put things where I want it to go. I just find it, easier to work with when I'm building these more creative visualizations.
That's actually a funny thought, because I think I've seen this same behavior in a lot of folks in the data fam community.
Yeah.
Even for me, I built business dashboards in Tau, but like most of my Tableau Public visualizations are floating.
Yeah, and I think that's because we can be a bit more creative. So you can bring in things like images, you can bring in things like custom headings and custom fonts and stuff like that.
Definitely. I totally agree on that. Cool. Is there any unique stories that you found out while you were exploring the 8 historical statues with
Yeah,
your daughters?
that's a good question. It was really good to find out more about these women and why they were immortalized in stone. Like I said, I went to visit their statues, and it was really good to get that historical view of what these women did that earned them this place. We have a few sporting heroes. Betty Cuthbert, who was an athlete, she won 3 gold medals. She was such a champion Olympian that she was chosen to be created as a statue. It was really good to get to know about the history of these women and why they were up there. I did quite a bit of research because I did want to know why these women had been chosen and other women may not have been chosen. So yeah, it was a really good experience. And when I do my visualizations, I do like to do that background research that may not make it into the visualization, but it helps me to understand the topic that I'm visualizing.
Yeah, I love that. I think as we are building visualization, we're all often driven by a curiosity. Like even when I was doing the Godzilla vis, I didn't expect to go far with it, but I looked at the past 40 years of Godzilla and
You do find yourself going down that rabbit hole and just like
yes.
Coming up with more questions and having more answers to those questions.
And most of the time, those information don't make it to the vis at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. But you know what? You've learned something, and
You learned something
you hadn't known before, and it may even spark someone else to go research about it themselves and to find out more information as well.
That's cool. So are we going to see you try to replicate this for the entire world?
You know what? Probably not. I don't know whether the data set is available, but that would probably be a good next step if I wanted to kind of branch out on this particular topic.
It's probably a good retirement excuse to travel the world.
Well, yeah, that's right. Visit the countries and take my own photos.
Sounds good.
Maybe if someone wants to sponsor me to do that, pay for me to go traveling, I wouldn't say no.
Cool. Is there anything that you're currently working on that you want to tease the audience a little bit?
There is actually, and it's something that's been on my list for, again, probably a year. But I know I'm so bad. So yeah, maybe like about 8, 10 or 12 months ago, I put a call out for women to sign up and put their name down as a potential speaker for the user group. I'm a Tableau user group leader myself, and I found it really hard to get women to come up and speak. And I thought what would be really good was if we had a database or a repository of women speakers that people could tap into when they're organising speakers for their tug. That can help bring more diversity to their speaker lineup and get different types of people coming in. A lot of people put their names down and gave me some information about topics that they could speak about or wanted to speak about, and whether they wanted to do it in person or virtual. So I've got that data set that I've been sitting on, and I just haven't had the inspiration hit me as to how I'm going to visualize this. I want it to be resources that tug leaders can tap into to source more women speakers. Hopefully I can get something published fairly soon.
I'm assuming that there's at least 51 women in that list, right?
You know what? There is not, but I would love to have more women. So when I do release this, I will link the form again so we can try to get at least 51. I think at the moment there's probably about 15 or 20. So we're not that far off.
It's better than 8.
Yeah, it is a lot better than 8. Yes. I'll take
Sounds
that
good.
as a win.
You take that as me. Cool. Thank you, Kimberly, for walking us through this phenomenal This story is very inspiring because I think we're moving from a society that is very male dominated to a more equalized society. And I think business like this help to bring to light the issues that we need to tackle as a society, shape policies or mindsets for a better
Yeah.
inclusive society.
Yeah, and
Right.
that's what I try to do in my visits. So if you have a look at my Tableau public profile, there's lots of women focused, and even just to get people thinking about it and taking that one step further to maybe do something about it, or even just to research it. That's, I guess, part of why I do what I do.
Yeah. I mean, change takes time, right? So as long as we have information out there, we can slowly inch towards change.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Thank you everyone for tuning in today on another episode of Secrets of the Biz, and thank you, Kimberly, for dialing in to join us. So I hope everyone learned something from this, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye.